The story of Joseph is really a sad story, but it also has a very happy ending. Now, if you recall, the story about Joseph began when he was younger and he had all these dreams about how he would be the ruler over all his brothers. And his brothers didn't like that very much, and so they sold him into slavery. Not a very nice thing to do. But then over the course of time, God was with Joseph. And even though he was in prison, God allowed him to receive favor with the different prisoners and the prison guards. And he ultimately got elevated through God's hand to become the second in charge of all of Egypt. Well, as we pick up our story today, there was a huge famine in all of Egypt. That means there's no food. There's not a lot of food around at all. And so for everyone to get food, they had to actually come to where Joseph was and he was in charge of at Egypt. And that included all of Joseph's brothers. Remember them who sold him into slavery? Well, they came and got food from Joseph, and Joseph immediately recognized them. But they had no clue who he was, because when they last saw Joseph, Joseph was just a child. Well, now Joseph was a grown adult. And so Joseph saw them and was ecstatic to see them, but he didn't want them to know who he was at first. And so he put them through a series of tests to find out if his dad was still alive and whatever happened to Benjamin, the youngest of all the children of Jacob, his father. And through a series of tests, they actually revealed to himself that, in fact, they are Joseph's brothers, and all of them are alive and well. Again, still not knowing that Joseph was Joseph. Well, as we pick up our story, I want you to see how Joseph responds to him and reveals himself to him and how he chose to act towards his brothers. Because, again, he could be really mean and rude to them and put them all in prison if he wanted to, but he didn't. So what I want you to do right now is to pause the video, read the short story, and answer these few questions. But I want you to see how Joseph responds to his family and the lesson that we can learn from this story, this whole big story today. All right, pause the video right now, and when you're done, press play, and we'll continue. So we see Joseph and his entire family reunited. Joseph couldn't handle his emotions anymore, and he told everyone, "I am Joseph, your brother." And I love what he says here. He said, "What you meant for bad, God meant for good." Okay, Joseph realized that God had a plan. God had a master plan. That even though there was ups and downs in Joseph's life, God was still with him, guided him through it, and that God had an ultimate plan to bring him together with his family, and that they would be reunited, and God had a great blessing for all of them. So Joseph knew that God had a plan. In fact, that's what our bottom line is today. You can trust God has a plan. You can trust that God has a plan. No matter what you go through, God is still working. God is still there, walking alongside of you. At any time, Joseph could have said, "See you later, God, I don't need you anymore. You're not helping me." Because he went through a series of bad times, and it wasn't just a day or a month. It was a few years where things were not great for him. But he trusted God because he knew that God had a plan. Guys, we know that God has a plan, and God is working. What we have to do is to stay faithful, just like Joseph, trust God's plan, and trust that God is going to do great things down the road in our lives if we continue to just trust him. So remember, you can trust that God has a plan. And again, it goes back to the main verse that we've been looking at for the entire month. It's Proverbs 3:5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. If Joseph tried to figure out what God was doing all along the way, he would have gone crazy. He would have gone mad because it didn't make a lot of sense at times. But he trusted God, and trusted God had a bigger plan going on than what he could even figure it out. So don't trust on your own understanding. Just trust God and see where he leads you. And again, I guarantee you that where he leads you will lead to a big, huge plan of redemption, forgiveness, love, compassion, because God is all about all of those. And he's going to work in your life in a mighty way that will impact not just your life, but impact the lives of other people as well. All right, everyone, well, I hope you've enjoyed this series on Joseph. Again, if you have any comments, definitely put it in the comment section below. Also, if you have any stories about how you've trusted God's plan and it's worked out in a great way, again, I would love to hear it. So put it in the comment section below. All right, everyone, well, I hope you have a great rest of the week, and I'll see you next week with a whole new story. Have a great week, everyone.